Ni hao. Hi. So for my interaction, I worked with a young girl named Star who's from China, and through dancing, singing, parties, and cooking, we got to know each other.
And I interacted with my friend Yunji from Hong Kong. She taught me how to play like the Chinese like badminton, and I taught her how to play volleyball.
So now from there, we're going to talk a little about our experiences in the aspect of metacognition strategies.
And when I was talking to Yunji, it was very interesting because she said how like metacognitive and like how she was to her classes, and this is because she was explaining how she does better in certain classes if they're smaller. And this is like a really interesting thing because she has to be very detailed about researching each class to make sure it's a smaller class, because she said that she studies better if she like only has a smaller class size, and she like does better in each class if she can have a smaller class and it's more interactive with the teacher, because then the language barrier isn't as bad.
And I think that's really interesting because a lot of the strategies Star was telling me about was having to like break her classwork into smaller sections so she could understand it more, because she has that language barrier too, and just coming into a whole lot of information all at one time is really hard for her. So one of the things that me and her do is study together, and so I help her with being able to break down those barriers.
Yeah, and they have to have like strategies for studying, because if like she was telling me, like Yunji was telling me, like if she doesn't actually, she said she actually studies all the time because the language barrier actually is very difficult. If like she has to have a lecture class, it is so difficult for her. So she like says like she came to America to be here. There's nothing else. So it's like her motivation is so high to do well here and like bold, like go through anything, all her obstacles. So like the smaller classes just like help her succeed a lot more, and I think it just like makes her do a lot better in school.
Yeah. So speaking of motivation, that brings us to our next section, which is motivation. And I feel like international students, which is what me and you both have going on here, is really, really big, because they have to be motivated to take themselves out of their comfort zone, come to a whole new space, and want to succeed in it. And so as an example for Star, she was very motivated in coming to America and making a better life for herself and doing the things that she wanted to do because of the fact that she is an only child. And, in China, women were up to that high standard. They wanted to be domesticated there. And so, so domesticated. And so her motivation was to come here and to be more than what they thought she could be.
Yeah, and like they have to to motivation to succeed, they've come so far. Like it just like I totally agree with that. Like Yunji said, she's like come so far. Like she was also an only child, so it's like kind of her parents like focus on that, and like her motivation is so much higher than probably a lot of people who just think not that the education is the most important thing of college. And she just says that like she is always studying with her friends, and I see her in group project room on my floor all the time, and it totally shows that her motivation is very high, and like her strategies for studying are like very good, because her motivation just like kind of it pushes her to do a lot better than like a lot of people expect.
And I really think that's like a lot. Like I can see like a lot of myself sometimes in Star, and there's a lot of things that I can just say, like, just from being around her and doing these interactions, I learned about myself. Like, I learned or realized that I pass the judgment on people that I know I have more in common with. So, like, me and Sam, if I was to see her, like, I pass judgment first. As for if I was to see somebody who's different from me,
like Star, maybe.
Star, or I work with kids with disabilities, like someone like that, they intrigue me, and I find them a lot more interesting, and I feel like they have a story to tell, so I don't pass judgment on them as often. But like hanging out with Star, getting to know her, she like has that thing too where she doesn't try to pass judgment because she doesn't want anyone passing judgment on her. So I just learned that like at some point you just kind of like gotta read the book before you even look at the cover.
Mine's kind of like the opposite, which I thought was really interesting when we were talking about it, because I mean, like as bad as it sounds, like I kind of judge like more like Yunji. I didn't know her. Like I thought like she wasn't making an effort to get to know the people on our floor, because a lot of like girls on our floor are friends, and I was like, oh well, maybe after a while, I was like, well, maybe, like, that's not even the point. Maybe she actually wants to get to know us. Like, maybe it is the language barrier. And now I learned, like, after talking to her, like, the interactions were, like, so fun. Like, I explained in my videos, like, her teaching me and me teaching her. Like, I actually have seen, like, that for further in education, it actually would be, like, very fun to, like, teach people what culturally different from me, because you're really, like, I like Brianna, like, I'm really intrigued now. Like, she had, like, her whole story about motivation and, like, coming so far to, like, get an education here was really interesting to me. And now, like, I totally have, like, a lot more respect for international students, because, like, they have, like, so much motivation to do well and succeed at Michigan State. And I just think it's really cool and interesting.
Yeah, although I'm not going into teaching, a teaching aspect that, like, I can relate to is just being able to sit down and then put all your biases aside and actually understand. I feel like to be a good teacher, you have to not only want to give direction, but you would have to, like, want to take direction too. You can't just build and teach off of things if you have no idea. You have to learn how to relate to people and listen to what, listen to their side of the story
and
see
accept
things.
them.
Yeah, and accept and see things from other people's point of view. Or you're just going to be stuck in one place and it's just going to be about what you think and what you say. And you won't get anywhere with students like that, because students want you to be in that position. They want to be comfortable with you to talk about things that they know are, important to them. It might not be important to you because you've already overcome those obstacles, but you want to be able to relate with your students and overcome obstacles with them as well.
Yeah, and that's why I think, like, all of these interactions are, like, really important to me, because I've, like, kind of learned about myself that, like, I can reach out and, like, I can teach things. Like, and it kind of just made me more excited for my future because I'm going into education. So we both, like, appreciated these interactions a lot.
I really did enjoy it. It was a lot of fun. And had it not been for this class and this project, I probably wouldn't have stepped out of my comfort zone and done as many things with Star. Like, me and her were, like, I guess if you want to say secret friends. We weren't, like, going out in public and stuff. So I just feel like this made me step out of my comfort zone, and it also gave Star, like, an insight on, because I feel like a lot of international students think that, like, Americans are kind of like
agreed. Like, Yunji, like, would not have talked to me either. It was, like, the same kind of thing.
I really just appreciate really helped, I just really appreciate having the opportunity and the push that this class gave me to interact with other people. So I think that's about it.
Yeah, thanks.
Sen ya.